there's really just a couple of slides here. I just happened to download it earlier today. And some of this we talked about last week, but we'll touch on it again real quick. So a lot of these are some slides that I get from a national organization that keeps us updated on what's happening in real estate, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of experts just on the economy in general are saying that the housing market historically does a V-shaped correction right after a pandemic, recession like this that we're up against right now. So you can see, everybody's basically saying we're going to come down here while we're going through all this, but we're going to jump right back up. And I'm not going to read all this, but this just kind of backs it up. A few people are saying, it's what they call the V-shape, recovery. It's, once we get on the other side of this, the housing market anyway, just going to, pop right back up. And again, a lot of these experts are, saying those types of things. And then here I get into, this is where I thought some interesting stuff was happening as far as like what people are projecting for values of homes, what's going to happen over the next year or two. And what I thought was interesting was, as far as the projections go for 2020, we're still going to see some increases in value, just maybe not as much as we thought, which is kind of like the interesting, topic because of interest rates being down and inventory still being down. Here's some graphs here that I'll tell you, like what people were saying it was going to happen in 2020 is we're going to see 4.7% increase in home values. So now what they're saying is 3%. What we got to remember is 3% is still an increase, so we're still going to see some appreciation. What we're not going to see, hopefully, is depreciation. All this, like I said last week, kind of just stems on how long this lasts. But if it lasts as long as everybody thinks it's going to last, 3% growth in your home still isn't bad. So then here, if you go to 2021, they were projecting 3.8%. Now they're projecting 4.2%. So that's, an increase. All right. And obviously here in 2022, they haven't projected anything, but they're projecting 4.6 now, just looking at how things are going. And a lot of this is coming from the month's worth of inventory. I've talked about this a gazillion times on podcasts and market updates. This seems to be like the hot topic over the last, 4 years is months worth of inventory. And you can see back in 2007, it was 8.2 months, and now it's 3.1. I will say, again, this is national data. And here's another graph that you can see. This is national data. Here in the Portland area, we are below 1 month worth of inventory. So, even though this is saying like, hey, we might have 2 or 3 months, that's not really the case here in the greater Portland area. I've seen towns that have 1 week, 2 weeks worth of inventory, if you calculate it out. It's crazy.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
And I'm happy if you tell me it's a stupid question and cut me off.
I thought you were going to say I'm hammered, which would be funny. But.
No, that would be a statement. I'm about to ask a question.
All right, here we go.
So, and obviously I'm a layman as far as real estate. So I'm looking at the graph. Perfect. And I just, I was one of those people that bought in Massachusetts, though. I was in New England, but I bought in 2005. And then when we went to sell, and I know Doug knows this, but I went to sell when I moved to New York City and the market had crashed. So for me as a layman, I'm looking at this graph going, I'm really surprised to see it was a buyer's market. But maybe I'm confusing something. A buyer's market in 2008 and 2010. So what was that? What did that market look like at that time?
Well, Vicky might be able to answer this better because I got licensed at the end of 2010. But I do recall like 2010 and all that stuff. It was a buyer's market because we were coming out of the crash of 2008.
So there was a lot of inventory.
A lot of inventory.
See, that's what fascinates me. If people lost so much money in their homes from the crash, why were you know what I mean? Like I wasn't sure if you had an opinion.
Yeah, that was the time of all the foreclosures.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, nationwide at that point. People were just dumping and running, and they didn't care. They just needed to get out.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, times were, even when I first got licensed, times were different. I remember, when a buyer came to me, and we started talking about buying a house, there was lots of houses to look at, Vicky said, a lot of foreclosures and short sales at the time. That's the way it was, back then. It's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah. What's interesting too is the government had a website that you could go to that would have just pages and pages of foreclosures. It was like your MLS listings today, and it was just like it was just pages and pages of foreclosures. So
right,
that's like that goes to show you how different it was back then.
Yes.
It was pretty easy to get the seller to pay closing costs and some stuff that buyers would dream of today.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It would be a huge gift now, but back then it was common.
That's so true. Even now I still get people that ask me like, hey, you ever come across any foreclosures and stuff? I'm like,
really.
Maybe, but when they do hit the market, you're going to be up against like 50 other people, literally.
Oh, that's what right next to, I'm in Maryland, so I'm in a different, location in the country, but and again, Doug knows my neighbor who was an older Japanese couple, very much to themselves, but very, very calculated about how they took care of their property and their home. And they'd been in the home for many, many years. It was a forced eviction or foreclosure. Like the sheriff came and they had like an auction for the stuff. And it was shocking because he just wasn't the type of person that I thought would be in that situation. But obviously everybody's situation is different. But that house was sold in a weekend. It was like it was the sign was put in on Friday. They had open houses, and by Monday it said under contract. It was bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
I think what happened then too, a lot of people were using their homes to buy RVs and boats and take trips. And
RVers are so ignorant. What a bunch of lamos.
Yes, they are.
Who would do that?
But they mortgaged their houses and took out equity to buy things and second homes and things like that. And then they got into trouble.
Oh, yeah.
When the market dipped.
Yeah. Yeah, I bought, like I said, in 2005. The market crashed in 2007. Grace and I moved to New York City for a couple of years and then moved to Maryland. But we were involuntary landlords for 5 years and basically got it so that the price started going back up, and we paid off enough of the principal where we finally weren't underwater when we sold. So we sold in 2012, but it took us 5 years to get to that spot of rent and the market turning.
Yeah, and that's about what happened across the country, like that timeline. I don't think values came back until around then.
Right.
So
let's
see.
I'm done talking.
No worries, man. Let's see. Something else I would go through. I did this last week, but I figured we'd look at this week, this past week. This is what we call a hot sheet. Vicky and I look at this probably every day. It just kind of shows like how many new listings came on, how many went under contract, all that kind of stuff. So this is the greater Portland area, under 700 residential. And you'll see here, well, that can't be right. Hold on a second. Oh yeah, I didn't change it. There we go. Now it'll work. So for the past week, you'll see new listings here, 26 new listings in the greater Portland area. That's Portland, Westbrook, South Portland, Cape Elizabeth, Falmouth. I think that's about it. Scarborough. So 26 new listings. We've had 7 price changes. 33 properties have closed, and 32 properties have gone under contract over the last week. And then 6 of them expired and 3 withdrawals. So you'll see that there's still activity. Just like last week, it was like, even with what's happening, properties are still going under contract. So that's good news, I think, as long as everybody's being safe out there.
Don LaRue, my old grade school's teacher.
Oh,
is it?
He was my 5th grade school teacher. Yep.
Nice.
Was he a good teacher?
Yep. Nope.
I was going to say, I can't see him as a teacher. That's funny.
Let me see here. So this, Vicki, I don't know if you look at this that much, but these are like market data here in MLS. And if I do Cumberland County, I found some cool stats to look at. If you look at Cumberland County data, what I enjoyed looking at was here you can see it compares last year. You know, last week somebody asked me if this is like normal what we're seeing. And this kind of shows you like March of last year and March of this year, you know, what has happened. Actually, no, it's this month. So it would be April. But you'll see here active listings. Shoot, this thing's in my way, so I got to move it. Is down 20% in Cumberland County. This is new listings. We're down 15%. And let's see if we come up here. Sold listings. We're really not down all that much at all in Cumberland County. And pending listings, we're only down about 10%. So does that make sense?
It does to me.
What I thought was interesting though is Portland. Portland is the town that I mentioned that were deemed non-essential. And check out the numbers here. Sold listings down 12%. Year to date, down 25% this month. Down 36% this month. New listings down 20% and down 40% solds. You know, wow. So if you look at the towns that are deemed non-essential, these numbers are pretty across the board. Like if I bring up Cape Elizabeth, we're going to see similar numbers. But if we bring up a town that
do Scarborough.
Well, I'll show you. Yeah, I can show you either. South Portland. Oh, yeah. Is one that is also deemed. South Portland is essential, so you know we're essential business there. They're up 10% on sold, up 43% on pending listings, up 4% on solds, and up 40% on new listings. So you can see, you know how important, at least to our business, that is. Again, we want to make sure everybody's safe, and we don't want to pressure anybody into being unsafe. But if you take the proper precautions and being an essential business, you know, things will still happen if needed in this market and what we're up against. All right, sound good?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I would love to get an update from Casey Hamlin now.
On the spot.
Put you on the spot. What can you tell us about mortgages?
Well,
he just promised us a 30-year 0% refi.
Whoa.
That's funny. Mike, I got the same thing.
I'm moving to Maine.
Hey, listen.
All it takes.
Trying to get that from Rocket Mortgage.
Cheers to that.
Thanks. Oh gosh, I hate to. I don't know. It won't be really too uplifting as far as what's going on in the lending world. Things have gotten a little bit more strict and stuff like that. And the biggest thing right now that lenders are worried about is that the whole forbearance thing that people can utilize if they get in trouble. It's considered. It's basically in the lending world. It's considered a delinquent or a delinquency, and that's a bad thing. It means that. If we did a loan for you and then you then went and tried to get the payments modified, basically we would have to hold on to your loan and be on the hook. And the whole banking world is based on being able to do loans and then sell the loans off. That's kind of how they make their money. So the issue with the government saying that, that the servicers will work with homeowners is great, but they didn't think it through very well, because it means that the lenders are kind of in trouble if that happens, because they can't sell their loans off, and if they can't sell their loans, they run out of money. So it's a really difficult time. We're hoping that something develops with Congress and the Treasury. So
Casey,
I don't
does
know.
it mean that they can't charge interest for the months that they tack on to the end of the loan for the forbearance?
So each servicer, I guess, is handling it a little bit differently, is what I've been told. But yeah, so basically they're tacking on, they're just adding it to what they owe at the end, and it's supposed to be interest free. Okay. And that sort of thing. But honestly, like, we have to. It's gotten to a weird point in the lending world where we've got to basically almost have to beg people not to do it, because it's gonna really ruin our industry from allowing, because basically the Freddie Mac said, hey, we don't care, we don't, we're gonna allow these people to do it, and we're not gonna buy your loan if they do it though. So it's like, well, how can you say that? Right. And it just freezes up credit for everybody. So yeah, it's kind of a tough thing. It's, it's something that we had a conference call on actually right before this, that went over that. And, we're basically asking them before they sign anything at the closing table, do you plan on deferring any payments on this? And if they do, deal's dead.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you seeing them tighten up on who they're lending to, or are things changing on a daily basis?
Yeah. All the government loans have basically dried up. Most lenders require a 680 credit rating or higher for a government loan. And the whole purpose of the government loans was to provide credit to people that have marginal credit,
right?
To help them get into homes. So, the fact they've kind of cut down on those or cut back on those is really, it makes it tough, because 30% of the population uses those loans to buy homes. And, and I was saying to Mike the other night that, like a VA loan is a great loan, very well deserved, and they perform really, really well. And unfortunately, because it's backed by the government, it got lumped into these other loans that don't perform well. And it's really made getting loans for veterans really, really challenging, really difficult.
Which, is ridiculous, because the government's requiring these things, and banks to do forbearance, but then they're not offering to continue to offer the loans.
Yeah. So they just said, hey, if we don't care if they go into payment deferment, then default, we're not going to buy the loan from you. And it's like, man, it's like, how can you say that, encourage people to do that, but then penalize the lenders? And so it's tough. It's a tough situation. So, but good news is rates are really low. It's super cheap to buy a house or refinance, and
Are they round 3? Where are we at?
They're in low 3s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. And
now, Casey, do you see, like, what about like long term being like the next year or two? I mean, do we think that coming out of this, it's going to go back to somewhat normal, or do you think there's going to be any long-term damage to that, to what you're saying?
As far as like in the lending world, I think once we get on the other side of this, and that the economy comes back a little bit, just we can go back to our normal lives. Yeah. Then I really do think everything is going to kind of sort out. But just in the short term, it's really, it's really tight. So
right. Okay.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah, right.
Thanks for that, Debbie Downer.
I know. Well, it's funny. We had the conference call at 3. I was like, it's a good thing I have this happy hour at 4, because I need a beer right now.
Cool.
So to kind of personalize things, Casey, like I'm looking at the email that you sent me. So it looks like the better option, which I think goes to your point, is FHA, or like other loans are performing better than VA loans at this point, especially in terms of a refinance.
Well, FHA is no. The FHA is not performing as well as VA, but they're all government loans. They're all backed by the government, and so if you're an investor and you're buying a pool of loans, they don't know how many are VA and how many are FHA. So it's like the FHAs are the ones that are like the scarlet letter they don't want, and so they're just staying away from all of them because they don't know which ones are which. So by them staying away from it, that means that nobody's there to buy the loan from basically ends up being us. And that's how, as a lender, all the mortgage companies, that's how they do their business. They front the money knowing that they can sell it and be paid a premium for that.
Right.
And, and even banks do that. Your local banks do that too. That's really where the money's at in mortgage world.
Interesting.
So it's a really good situation.
Okay.
I'm kind of surprised they don't, separate out the VA loans out of those, packages or whatever.
You would think, I mean,
seems like it.
Yeah.
But even in a refinance with the VA loan, you're still going to be charged those fees like they do when you use the VA loan for the first time, right?
Yeah. So if you're a veteran and you take out cash out of your house, it's basically like reusing it to buy a second house, and the fee is like it's over 3% of the loan. So if you buy a house, if your loan size is like $400,000, the VA charges you like $12,000 right up front in your loan, which is a lot. If you just do the loan just to pay off what you owe, they roll in like 0.5%, so it's a whole lot cheaper that way. But it goes back to just being able to get the loan itself is so challenging right now because of what we're seeing on the other side of things. That just makes it really tough. So
yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, rates are low, so that's a good thing, and people will always be buying homes and selling homes. So
right. I mean, that's the good thing. The good thing is rates are low, and if you have a solid job and a solid income and a good credit score, you're still going to be okay, right?
Yes.